So Dan Bannock, please welcome.
All right, thank you, Tim. So I get the privilege of doing the really cool hands-on stuff. So if you haven't started up Fusion yet, now would be a good time to do that. This is the pause slide. All right, so real quickly, so in this session, we're gonna just walk through a few of the higher level stuff. So I'm gonna, first of all, walk you through creating a project. And then, of course, we're going to design this cell phone stand. So a little story about this. So about a month ago, working with my interns, I asked them the question, I go, what would be something really cool that every college student would want? So a big shout out to David Moit from Cornell. He's the one that came up with the concept for the cell phone stand. And then, of course, as a team, we iterated on it. But thank you, David. And then, of course, as you can see, we're going to do a really cool rendering. And then, as we were mentioning, we're also going to create an STL file. You guys will learn how you can actually send that to Shapeways. And we'll pass some of these around. So the one that I'm holding is based off, it's built in nylon, which is really, really cool. And everyone wants one. And then we're going to talk about some of the great collaboration tools. So Daniel before was talking about, Fusion is built in the cloud. How easy is it for us to collaborate? So you guys are going to get an opportunity to collaborate your designs with others. And then at the very end, we're actually going to run through a quick simulation on how to send this to a CNC machine. All right, so before we get started, just a little housekeeping information. So if you're brand new to Fusion, across the very bottom of the screen is going to be your navigation bar. So here's where you're going to be able to go back and orbit your viewpoint, and a lot of these like pan and zoom. But in the upper right-hand corner, which I'm gonna be using a lot, is gonna be the view cube. So if you go back and select on the home right up here, that's gonna take you back to a default isometric view. And you'll also see me go back and start selecting the planes and edges, these vertices, to go back and change my viewpoint. Now, of course, hopefully everyone has a mouse. Kind of difficult to do CAD without a mouse. So just a couple of little housekeeping things here. So if you just take your wheel and spin it in and out, you'll zoom in and out. Hold down your wheel, of course, is pan. And the one that is going to be critically important, hold down the shift key and the wheel will be your orbit. So again, changing your viewpoint. So as Daniel was talking about this morning as well, so those of you that are running on a Mac, which is way cool, right? So you have your options to go back with your trackpad and do your pinch and 2 little fingers to go back and do the rotation. Right. So that's the boring stuff, by the way. Now we're going to get into the cool stuff. So first of all, so we have some files that are already saved. So again, I would like everyone to do this with me. So I'm going to switch over to Fusion. Now in the upper left-hand corner, everyone should see this left-faced arrow. I'd like you to go ahead and click on that, if you have that. And what that's going to do, it's going to take you back to the very beginning screen. Then I want you to take your wheel and scroll all the way down, or the bar on the right-hand side. At the very bottom of the screen, everyone should see, workshops and events. Does everyone see that? Let's double-click on workshops and events, the very bottom entry. Everyone's good. And then go ahead and double-click on the EDU folder for education. Of course, you know what we're going to do next, right? Go ahead and double-click on Design Now Digital Conference. And you have 4 files. So this is going to be really tricky. What I want you to do is go double-click on 1-sketch done. Then you probably guess what we're going to do next, right? Then double-click on 2, sketch done. Then number 3. And of course, by now you know, also double-click on number 4. And for each one of these, by the way, it's going to start opening up its own tab across the very top. And we're going to use these files as we roll through the rest of this presentation. So think of these kind of as a safety net as you're going to start to explore. We're going to go back and take a look at these. All right, so let me get back to the PowerPoint real quick. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a project. So of course, we're at an Autodesk Design Now event. So we're gonna create a new project called Design Now. And I'm gonna walk you through how to create a subfolder. So if you go to another Autodesk event, this is a really easy way to go back and maintain your files into a nice file structure. And then we're gonna create a new design file, place this in. So we have this unit built in inches. So we're gonna make sure that everybody is utilizing inches for this design. And then we're gonna create this profile. So let me explain a little bit about what this profile means. So one of the other guys here will help you. Okay, so the 1 inch dimension that you're looking for, so this is gonna be your cable. So you're gonna need to get a measuring device. So there will be math on this test. You're gonna wanna make sure what that distance is. So mine is just generically 1 inch, so I have a lightning bolt. The 0.5, so this is gonna be for the thickness of your phone. So don't blame me if you don't do the measurement, right? So you're gonna be able to change that later. And of course, to 10 degrees for that phone if you wanted to tilt back a little bit more. So those are all things that you can change. And then lastly, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna save this design. All right, so first of all, get back into Fusion here. And the first thing we're gonna do, again, is we're gonna go all the way back. So the very first thing that we did up here, so remember the left-faced arrow? So go ahead and click on that left-faced arrow. So again, this is our top-level screen. And at the very top, everyone sees New Project. So go ahead and click on New Project. Then we want you to type in Design Now. And then enter. And then once you enter, you can scroll down so you can see all the projects that I have. And then you're gonna double click on the new project called Design Now. All right, kind of looking at everyone in the room, looks like everyone's good. So the next thing we wanna do is we're gonna create a subfolder. So very easy way to go back and manage your files. So across the very top, again, let me zoom up here. So you see the folder with the plus. So go ahead and click on that. And then just like I have here, type in conference 9-13-16, so you'll always remember this day. And then of course, what I want you to do is then double click on that folder, and this is where our files will be saved. Right, so you'll notice that I had a previous design here. So as you can see, data management is super easy. I can just simply go back and delete that file, do a rename if I needed to. Now, the next thing that we want to do is create a new design file. So I'm going to go under the File dropdown. Here, let me zoom up on this so everyone can see. So go ahead and select underneath this dropdown, then New Design. So now we should have 5 tabs across the very top. So like I said, there will be math on this test. All right, now, so we have our data panel on the far left-hand side taking up, some real estate here, so we don't need to see that. So if you click on the 9 cubes right up here, or this X, you can close out the data panel. Everyone with me so far? All right, now, in your browser, we have units. So what I'd like you to do is click on the units, and then you're gonna have a little piece of paper with a pencil on there. Whenever you see the pencil, there's the option to go back and do an edit. So of course, if yours is at millimeters, this would be your opportunity to change this to inches. Otherwise, I'm not responsible for you having a micro cell phone holder. Okay, so with inches, as you can see, if you were changing that, if you're always gonna work in inches, you can set that as your default. All right, now let's get started. So now we wanna start creating the sketch. So what I'd like everyone to do is go under the sketch menu. We're gonna create a circle, center point circle. And you notice just to the right is the shortcut with the letter C. So if you like to do the shortcut keys, you can just press C as well. Now, we need to tell Fusion, what plane do I want to sketch on, right? So you'll notice that I didn't have to create a sketch first. We could have, but Fusion is just going to walk us through, so what plane? So remember, as I started, I was referencing the view cube. So what I want to do is I want to select the plane that's going to be parallel to the front. So that's going to be this guy right here. So go ahead and click on that. Now that we're in the sketch environment, so you notice that we have a sketch palette on the far right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is click on Sketch Grid, and I would like you to do the same thing. So by turning on the Sketch Grid, I can now see where my origin point is, which is going to be critical here. And I'm going to zoom up, again, just scrolling the wheel. So it says right around 1 inch. So I'm going to go right around 1 1/4 inches. I'm going to go a little bit higher for this demonstration. I'm going to pick on a point, and I want this to be 3/4 of an inch. So 0.75, and enter. So congratulations, if this is the first time using Fusion, you just drew your very first circle. Yay. It will get better. Everyone's good? All right. Next, we're going to draw in a line. So from the sketch palette, across the very top is line, or again, you could press L. And here, let me zoom up on this. And I'm simply going to select on the left-hand circle on that edge to the right-hand side, but I want this to be at 0 degrees. I want it to be horizontal. But you'll notice that I drew it up a little bit higher. And that's really for demonstration purposes, because later I'm going to apply a rule referred to as a constraint. And just for a reference here, so the top portion of this circle, once we put in that line, that's what we're going to actually revolve around to create the base. All right. So since we have a circle and a line, we're going to draw in a rectangle. Well, we don't want this to be just a regular rectangle. We're going to do a 3-point rectangle. Do some crazy things here this morning. So what I'd like to do is go under the sketch menu, rectangle, 3-point rectangle. So this will allow us to place it in at an angle. So again, I'm just going to move my cursor so it's above the circle, and I'm going to click the left point. And as you see, as you move your cursor, you get the rubber band effect. And I want to type in 0.5. And then press the tab key. So by pressing in the tab key, you notice the lock symbol that appeared. So this lock symbol right here shows me that that dimension is not going anywhere. Right now it's 0.5, it's locked in. And I'm just going to select a point a little bit down and to the right, because I want that to be at an angle. And again, later we'll come back and put in a real dimension there. Now I want this next dimension to be 1 inch. And again, what this is going to do, it's really going to be later, I'm going to use this to cut out the material for my phone. And then enter. Now, if you need to go back and make any dimensional changes to this, simply double click on the dimension and type in a new value, okay? Now, next thing that we want to do is apply a couple dimensions. So again, let's just go back from the sketch menu. And I want to show you guys something pretty cool. Let me zoom up on this. So you'll notice here with the dimension tool, does everyone see this arc with the arrow that's going up? So I'm assuming that everyone's going to place in a few dimensions each day, right? So if you go ahead and click on that arc with the up arrow, it's going to place the dimension tool right up here. So very quickly, you went back and you customized the user interface, which is helpful. So again, you can do that for any of the tools that you want. So of course, what I'd like you to do now is go ahead and select the dimension tool. So we're gonna start it. Again, let me pan and zoom up so you can better see what I want to do here. So what I'm going to do next, and I'd like you to do the same, is I'm going to select the center point of the circle and the origin point. So that's our 0, 0. So that's why we turned on the grid. And then move your cursor down to place that in as a horizontal dimension. And the dimension that I'm looking for is 1.25. So after going through a couple of designs here, we realized 1 1/4 inch gives us the perfect radius, which of course will be our diameter of 2.5 inches. All right, now let's go back here. Let's say I want to place in a couple of constraints. So you'll notice right now the circle can freely move up and down, right? Because we didn't locate that yet. Now, of course, I could place in a dimension from the center point to the origin point with the vertical dimension equal to 0. We could, we won't, but we could. So from the sketch palette, what I'd like you to do is find the horizontal vertical. Does everyone see horizontal vertical? And go ahead and click on the icon. And what I'd like you to do is select on the origin point and the center point. And let me explain what happened once you did that. So of course, everyone knows what a horizontal vertical line is, but think about selecting those 2 points. If they're close to horizontal, as you can see here, it made them horizontal. Okay, and now I'm gonna do the same thing with the center point of the circle to one of the endpoints of the line. So there's a couple ways, again, that we could have done this. We have a coincident constraint that may have worked. But since we're already in the horizontal vertical constraint, we'll just use that one. Now, what's interesting here, so you'll notice again it says horizontal / vertical. So how are we going to do that, right? So of course you'll notice what I want to do next is I want to place in a vertical constraint from the center point, clicking on that, to the midpoint of the angle line. So you notice if you move your cursor, we can get the endpoints here, and let me do this. I'm going to turn off the sketch grid so it's a little bit easier to see. To find the midpoint, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. If you hold down the Shift key and select down the line, you'll see the X for midpoint. And lo and behold, it's now aligned right in the middle, which is pretty cool. Okay, looking like everyone's good. So the last thing we want to do is apply a couple more dimensions. So again, remember, since we've added the dimension tool up to that sketch panel, or sketch menu, we can simply click on that. And I'm going to apply a 1-inch dimension from the left vertical line to this bottom end point of the rectangle. So again, this is where I would suggest afterwards go back and get your cable, and then measure that as well to make sure that it can actually roll through. Because at the very end here, I'm going to show you how we can go back and actually create the cutout for the cable to run underneath it. And then the last dimension we want to place is going to be an angle dimension. So we're going to select the line that we placed in that's centered and our angle line. Then move your cursor out to the left. And I want that to be 10 degrees. So again, you can do some experimentation with that 10 degrees. But again, from our extensive research that we've done, 10 degrees seems to work out really well. And then press the escape key, we'll exit the command. And then as you saw, what I was able to do is just click and drag, and you can move these dimensions around if you feel like it. All right, now, the most important thing we're going to do is we're going to save this file. So across the very top menu, go ahead and click on the save icon. And we're going to call this Cell Stand. And then verify where is it going to go. So here's the project. So Design Now Conference. And if for some reason that's not accurate, you can go from that drop-down list and reselect the location. All right, now that was the sketching part, which of course is critical, right? Because those dimensions that we just placed there are going to drive the rest of the design. So I know that took a little bit of time, but everything else is based on what we did there. All right, now, let me introduce you to the Sculpt environment. So just for example here, by the way, if you weren't able to complete that sketch, I'm going to show you how we can take that file that we opened up previously, sketch done, and then we're going to create an entry in the timeline. So across the very bottom of the screen, I'm not sure if you saw that when we created the sketch, it actually placed in an entry there, but we're going to create another one called form. So a lot of us will also refer to this as the Sculpt environment. Some will say this is surface modeling. So as Daniel mentioned, this is T-splines. So if you look at the edges here, even inside of the diagram here for the icon, where the edges come together, they form the letter T. Wow, easiest test question you students are gonna get all day. All right, and then we're simply gonna go back and we're gonna revolve just that top portion. All right, so now let me get back in here. So again, if you weren't able to get this far, you can go back and open up the Sketch 1 Done file and just work on it from here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is switch to a little bit of an isometric view so I can see this, because we're gonna revolve this in a second here. So again, just holding down Shift in the wheel, spin my rotation for my viewpoint. Now across the very bottom of the screen, do you guys see the entry that we have down here? So that's showing sketch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another entry here from the Create menu. Again, let me zoom up on this. So from the Create menu, we're gonna create a form. And by doing that, again, you'll notice we have another entry down in the timeline, which is nice. But more importantly, you'll notice that our tool set has changed, right? So we're showing you the tools as you need them. Now the next part, super easy. So we're gonna go under the Create menu, Revolve. So the third one from the bottom, revolve. Now, first of all, what profile do we want? Do I want to revolve the rectangle, the top, or the bottom of the circle? Well, we want the top part, so I'm just going to select in the top portion of that. One of the questions that you may have is, well, could we have trimmed this off at the bottom? The answer is yes, we could have, but there's really no reason to do that because Fusion allows us to just select a closed profile. One less step is a good thing. Then in the dialog box, go ahead and click on Axes. And when you select on the Axes option, you'll notice what happened. So we have our origin planes and axes appeared. And I'm going to rotate this about my y-axis, which is the green one. And here we get the preview. Everyone's with me so far? All right, now, you may be wondering, what are these arrows? You guys see the arrows? If you click and drag, you can add or remove the number of faces. So do I want to add some complexity to this? So the good news for what we're going to do here is we're going to have 8 faces going around in both directions. So simply change this to 8 and 8. And then go ahead and click OK. So everyone should look like so. So again, let me get back to the PowerPoint here and keep us on track. Now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on symmetry. So by turning on symmetry, whatever we do to the upper portion of our surface model will actually also get mirrored to the bottom. So we're gonna, in theory, do half the work. That's a good thing, right? So of course, our selection is gonna determine what is gonna be that mirror line, okay? And I'll walk you guys through this individually here. And then we're simply gonna then turn on the sketch. And we'll show you why that's gonna be important here in a second. So again, let's do this together. So the first thing I want to do is go back to the view cube, and I'm going to select on the plane called top. So when you select on that, your view may look something similar to mine, or depending on your viewpoint, it may be rotated. So if you need to rotate this in 90-degree increments, you're going to have your two arrows. So you can click on those and you can rotate, turn it 90 degrees. Now, let's next place in Symmetry. So what I'd like you to do is go under the Symmetry menu, and the very first entry is going to be Mirror Internal. Now, what faces should I select? And we want to select identical faces. So for example, I'm going to select this face, and I want to select the one below it, because if I would select the one to the right, are those identical faces? There's math teachers in the room here. The answer is no. So we want to select one on the top and the bottom that are identical. And again, just rotating to an isometric view, you can see that my line of symmetry has been created. A lot of math test questions inside of Fusion, isn't there? All right, now the last thing we want to do, go back to the browser, and I want you to expand the sketch folder, and we're going to turn on the visibility by clicking on the light bulb for sketch 1. And the reason that that's going to be important here in this next step is we're going to start taking these faces and pulling them up. And I want to make sure that I have enough material for us to be removing that. Okay? So again, let me move through this pretty quickly. So now I'm going to introduce you to really one command called Edit Form. So if you've never seen this, this is going to be the very coolest thing you're going to do today. Well, maybe not, but it will be. Well, write me if it's not. In a software environment. All right. So again, we're simply going to do a right click. We're going to get into Edit Form. As you can see in the graphic on the left-hand side, we can just pull those faces up. And here's a shortcut key here, little hidden secret. If you hold down the Alt key, we're going to add faces. Okay. And again, we're going to walk through this together. And as I go through this, this is where I want you to experiment a little bit, because remember, we opened up the number 2 file that we're all going to work from together. So feel free to experiment with this. And as soon as we finish out of this form environment, this is going to turn back into a solid. So we're going to go from surface to solid. Why? Because these surfaces form a closed environment, closed body, become a solid. And of course, then we will save. All right, so let's get started here. Again, I'm going to go back to the top view. I'm going to zoom up on this. So give you guys a little CAD lesson here. So I'm going to introduce a term called window and crossing selection set. So those of you that have been using Autodesk products know this. But if I go from left to right, it's a window. And what a window does is it selects only the objects that are 100% enclosed. If, for example, I go from right to left, you'll notice that the line is shown as dashed lines. It's called crossing. And what that does is it selects everything that's included or touches. That's not what I want, by the way. So if you just clear your selection set, just click in a blank area. I'm just going to select outside those 2 edges on the very left-hand side. So now those 2 are selected. And what I'd like you to do is do a right-click, Edit, Form. Now we get the little manipulator here. Let me move this out of the way. I'm going to select on the horizontal, and I'm going to move this out 0.3 of an inch, 0.3, which is way cool. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. So again, I'm going to do a window selection. Again, let me zoom up on this so you guys can see this. So 0.1 and 0.2. So now, once those are selected here, let me go back to an isometric view so now you can see what's going to happen. When I pull that out, watch this. How cool is that, right? So think about modeling with clay, but no mess. So I'm going to pull this out 0.4. Now, show you another selection. What I'd like to do is make this a little bit more triangular in shape. So I want to select all of these edges going around. As I talked about, I could go back and do a window, or what's easier here, double click on one of these edges. And you'll notice by double clicking on one of those edges, it selects everything going around that loop. And again, I'm going to move this out. And again, just for consistency, I'm going to take this out 0.3. But again, remember, since we have mirror on, what I did on one side, it did to the opposite side. And again, I'm going to do the same thing for this back edge. So I can just double click on that, and I'm going to move this out. Again, for consistency, I'm just going to do 0.3 of an inch again. And again, don't worry if yours isn't exactly like mine, because we're going to open up that number 2 file here in a second. So hopefully everyone's looks a little familiar, similar to mine. A bunch of head nods, yes? Okay, now, what I'd like us to do is really start to change this form. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to select these 6 faces. So I'd like you to do the same thing. So hold down the Control key, select those 6 faces, and you know what we're going to do now, right? So what I'd like you to do is take that arrow that's facing up, and let's move that up, again, 0.3 of an inch. Now, what I would like to do here, this is where you can go back and forth utilizing the view cube, so you can see what that form is looking like. Okay? Now, everyone remember what I told you, what we need to do to add faces? So far what we've done is take these faces and move them, right? We're stretching them. But if you hold down the Alt key, now move my cursor over the edge, I'm going to start adding some faces, which is way cool, right? So again, you guys can experiment around with this a little bit. I'm just going to hold down the Control key, remove those front 2 faces, pull this up. And again, what I'm looking for here, so this rectangle is going to represent what we're going to do for our cut. And maybe I'll hold down the Alt key and add a couple additional faces here. I'm going to remove those front 2 faces and maybe just pull this guy up just a little bit. So it looks something like that. Now, if you get really daring here, if you click right in the middle on that plane, you can do some way cool things. So, of course, this is where manufacturing discussion may have to happen because we may have some undercut here, but if we're going to 3D printing, all is good. Now, you can also select points. So if I select these 2 points by holding down the Control key, you can scale those out. It might be a little bit easier to see if I just do this in the side view. Just grab those points and move those out. So again, you can grab faces, edges, points. So literally, how long did that take? About 5 minutes? How cool is that, right? Now, if you're looking similar to mine or not, what I'd like you to still do is go ahead and click on Finish Form. So on the top right side of the menu, click on Finish Form. And let's go ahead and save this. So, Chris, if you're working on your file that you sketched all the way through, you're going to get an option in here for a description. So the other part, by saving these files up to the cloud, The interesting part that we get is the data management, as Daniel was talking about. It's integrated right into the Fusion platform. So every time you save, we're going to create a version. So I'm going to give this a name. So here, we're going to type in edit form. Now, if you opened up the Sketch 1 done file, you'll notice the save is grayed out. So what you're going to need to do is go underneath the file dropdown and do save as. All right, a lot of happy faces. Everyone's good. All right, so let's clean up our screen a little bit. So now what we're going to do is we're going to close two files. So the cell stand and Sketch 1 done. We no longer need those, so we'll go ahead and close those. And then the file that I want to have current is going to be the number 2, Sketch done. So again, just for consistency purposes here, you can see it looks very similar to what I just created. All right, now, the next part, we'll assume that we've just opened up that file. We're going to use that rectangle as our cutting edge. So this is going to go very quick. So you notice when we did the finished form, so this is a solid model. So what I'd like to do is introduce you one command now. It's called press pull. So if you do a right click, press pull. Now press pull is an intelligent command. So based on the geometry that you pick, it's going to give you the correct command. So what I want to do is I'm going to select inside the rectangle that we sketched previously. Being that that was a closed profile, you'll notice which command did it give us? Extrude would be the correct answer. So here you can grab the arrow. As you can see, red is demonstrating that we're going to remove material, which is correct. A couple things that I want to change is we're going to change to symmetric and extends to all. So let me zoom up on this so you guys can see. So change the direction here to two-sided. Symmetric will be the option here, and then all. And then go ahead and click OK. Spin it around, enjoy your work. Happy days, right? Now, let's go back and do one more part. So inside the design here, I want to put in a cutout next for the home button. And that's what we're simply going to do, is we're going to create a sketch on that front inside face. And when we do that, we're going to see that we're going to have a little bit of an issue because we're going to have the back face of the stand in our way. So I'm going to show you how to remove that material graphically. And then we're going to place and constrain in a circle. So again, we'll do this real quick. What I'd like you to do is rotate your viewpoint so you can see this inside face. We'll call it more like an arc. So when you select on it, it'll highlight. And we're going to create a sketch. So what I'd like you to do is right-click, create sketch. Now, everyone now sees the problem that I was saying that we were going to run across, right? So I can no longer see the sketch that I'm working on. So not a problem. We can fix this. So what I'd like you to do is go under the Inspect menu, Section Analysis. So go, again, Inspect, Section Analysis. And then you can rotate your viewpoint, and we're going to select on that same inside face. Move this out of the way. That will remove the geometry graphically, right? And then go ahead and click OK. So everyone's screen should look very similar to mine. Head nods in the room, yes. Let's proceed. So remember, I started off saying we have the navigation bar way at the bottom. So the second tool down there is called look at, let me zoom up on this. So the look at right here is the command that we want. That's going to change my viewpoint, so I'm going to look directly at that face. So look at, again, select on that same planar face. Pretty exciting, right? But that allows me graphically to be looking directly at my sketch. So let's go a little bit faster here. So we've done that circle before, so just press C on the keyboard. And then what I'd like you to do is we're going to draw right on this outside edge. So you'll see the little X on there. So I'm going to do mine wrong. So I want you to do it correctly here. So I'm going to do a little extra work. And again, we want this to be 0.75. And enter. So again, you'll notice mine, again, I did this wrong. I can freely move this. So on your point, you should be able to move the circle along that edge. So how do I fix that problem, right? So of course, what we could do is we could come back and apply that coincident constraint that I referenced before. But what if I just select and dragged it down to that edge? What if the software just knew that it should actually be there? Would that be a wonderful thing, right? All right, so now I want to align that circle so it's right in the midpoint. And we've done this before. So again, we're gonna go back. And again, just press the escape key. If you select in a blank area, we'll clear out all your selection sets. And again, we're gonna go back to horizontal, vertical. And what I would like you to do now is select the center point of the circle and hold down the Shift key. And we're going to select that horizontal edge to align this right in the middle. So hold down the Shift key and it will select that bottom edge. All right? Happy faces. All right. So again, I'm going to work through this really quickly here. So then the next step is, again, we're just going to go back. We'll use the same press pull command. We're going to remove that material. I'm going to show you, again, how you can do a quick change to your form. And I'm going to tell you a little story about this as well. So again, what I'd like you to do is right-click, press pull from the menu. So you notice what I'm not having to do is having to go back and say, I want to exit out of the sketch environment, right? I mean, I can, just don't have to. So press pull, select on the bottom portion of the circle. And again, visually, I want to pull that back to the left. What I would suggest, change the extents to all. And you just created the profile for the home button. Okay? Now, you're probably wondering, that's cool, but where did the rest of the stand go, right? So we want to bring that back. So if you go under and expand the analysis folder, does everyone see an entry there for section 2? Select on the light bulb. As you see, you can have as many of these analysis as you want, so you can turn them on individually, which is way cool. All right, now, so the next step here, again, just let me run through the PowerPoint. So we're gonna finish the form and watch what happens here, right? So now, I'm looking at this, and here's my story, right? So actually, this was one of the first designs I actually sent up to Shapeways, which was really cool, right? And I thought that everyone should have one of these made of porcelain, because why not, right? But the analysis came back, and it said that it was too thin. That was a problem. We don't like problems. We want to solve those, right? So down in your timeline, what I'd like you to do is double-click on Edit Form, right? So what I don't want you to do is create a new form, so we want to edit the existing one. So double-click in there. like I said, double click on that. Obviously, my mouse isn't working, but the right-click edit worked. So now, here's what I would also suggest. Turn on the visibility of Sketch 1. So now you understand, hopefully, a little bit better about what that rectangle was representing here. So this is my simple correction that I did, is I just grabbed that one edge, did Edit Form, and again, you can move that back out. Real simple fix. Go ahead, click OK. And then when you're done, finish form. So again, you can always go back and make changes. Now, I know I'm going to run out of time. So I just want to show you what the next steps would be. And again, so this PDF is available. You guys can download it if you're watching online on the exact same menu or the same screen. So what I did is I just created a circle on this origin plane, and we removed the material for the chord. So what I'd like everybody to do now is we're going to open up this file called 3-model done. And then we're going to save this design. And I want to walk you through 3 different sketches. All right, so here, again, we can close off Sculpt Done 2. So we don't need to save that, so I'm going to say don't save. Now your model should be active is 3-model done. Everyone concur? All right, now, just a couple of points. So remember Sketch 1 in your timeline, the very first one that we created. So remember, you can go back and make changes there. And a couple other changes that I did here. So Sketch 3 would be the next one. So if you double click on Sketch 3, this is going to create this cut that you can see right through, which the cable will miraculously work its way through. This design is based on a lightning bolt. If you don't have a lightning bolt, this dimension will not work, as we found out this morning as we were trying one of these, right? So what you can simply do is double click on the 3/8, and you can make that dimension whatever you want. So here, I'll just put it to a 1/2 inch, stop the sketch, and it will update accordingly. Cool stuff, right? So also, just to back up here a little bit, so I've been doing the right-click press pull in selecting on faces, right? But I want you to be aware, what happens if I select an edge with press pull? You'll notice it brings up the fillet command. So here you can go back and graphically add that fillet if you would so choose, okay? Now the last thing that I want you to be aware of, the very last sketch in the timeline is Sketch 5. So go ahead and double click on Sketch 5. And this is going to be the sketch that we have for the embossed text. So I'm fairly partial to the Fusion 360, but if you would like to change this, this is how you could do this. Simply move your cursor over the text, any of it, right-click, and edit text from the menu. Then once the dialog box is open, of course, you can change the text, you can change the height, you can modify the angle if you want. Here, you could go ahead and move that around if you wanted to. And then when you're done, stop the sketch, and it'll update. Pretty easy. All right, now, a few more things. So let's get to the really fun stuff now. is we want to change the appearance. So right now, the default material in Fusion is steel, which is okay if you like steel. But here we're going to change the appearance. I'm going to put on a different color, and we're going to apply a decal. Now the decal, it needs to be a PNG, a raster, or a TIFF, and it needs to be local on your computer. Right? So if you don't have one, you can just watch me do it. All right, so before we do that, let's go ahead and save this file. So of course, right now, this is in a read-only format for everybody. So go under the File dropdown, Save As. And let's go ahead and change this. So this would be your name. So mine will be Dan's. And you can use Dan's if that is your name. And you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to do Dan's cell stand. Say that fast 5 times. And then go ahead and click on Save. Now, what I want to do next is we want to change the appearance. So simply do a right click. And we're going to click on Appearance from the menu. The shortcut is the letter A, as you can see. You notice the other option was physical material. And as you can see, we got a whole bunch of different options. I'm just going to go under Paint. I like the metallic ones because they're just way cool. Now, if you have a drop-down arrow on the right-hand side, that means that appearance has not yet been downloaded. So just click on that drop-down arrow. And then to apply that, click and drag and drop it right onto your cell stand. How cool was that, right? Easy? But now it's looking a little dark. So what I'd like to do is modify that. Very easy. So I'm going to just simply do a right click right up on top of the menu, Edit. You can simply change the color from the palette. Of course, if you knew the color scheme, you could change that as well. Go ahead and click on Done. Now, the next part I want to do, so I'm going to close out the appearance, is I want to apply a decal. So I'm going to go under the Insert menu, Decal. And again, maybe just for time, I'll do this quickly here. So I'm going to select a face. And again, it really doesn't matter. As you'll see here in a second, I'm going to select an image. Now, if I zoom up on this, you can see I can move that decal all the way around graphically. A couple oohs and ahs in the crowd. Some of us have tried doing this in other systems before. Not that easy, right? Now, let me zoom up on this. If you select in that upper right-hand corner, you can scale this. Of course, we can rotate this. And let's do something maybe like 28 degrees, see what that looks like, close enough. How easy was that to apply that decal, right? And then I'll just go back to my default isometric view real quick. Now, of course, the decal is not going to be 3D printed. Just have to state that in case anyone's going to be disappointed. So next thing we're going to do is take a quick look at rendering. And we're going to show you how we can change the appearance. We're going to change this up to the cloud. All right, now, as Daniel was talking about, right, so Fusion is really a platform. And right now, we've been working in the model environment. So underneath the upper left-hand corner model, render is where I need you to go. So go ahead and click on render. And again, I'm going to do this really quickly because I think I have about 5 minutes left. So the second tool from the left here is the scene settings. So here you can go back. I'm going to make it a little bit brighter, so maybe 1200 lumens. I'm gonna change the background from a solid color to an environment. And just for time's sake, I'm gonna change the focal length to 55, and I'm gonna flatten the ground. Again, you guys can come back and play with this. Now, of course, you'll notice the background here is still gray. So what I wanna do is select on the Environment Library tab. And again, you may have to download some of these, but for example, if I wanted this stand to be on a dry lake bed, because every cell phone stand should be, you'll notice that the backgrounds are 3D, so you can rotate that. But here what I want to do is simply drop in the photo booth, so it will be somewhat generic. Close that. So again, you can rotate your viewpoint. And the last thing that I want to do now is render this. So I do have an option to render this locally. The problem with that is it's going to take up the processing power, won't be able to keep working. Being that Fusion is cloud enabled, click on the far render option. And we'll just take all the defaults, so cloud render is the default. Go ahead and click on render. And you'll see what it's doing. It's going to save that up to the cloud, and it's rendering. So let me quickly work with this here. So I want to show you how to create an STL file real quick and how to collaborate and a little bit on CAM. All right. I'm going to change my workspace from render back to model. So now back to the model environment, I can simply right-click on the cell phone stand, save as STL. And this really is as simple as it's gonna get. So let me save that. So now in the STL dialog box, it's calculating how many triangles are going to be represented by an STL file, because that's what an STL file is. And again, you can see that we have options. I can change that higher. We give you a utility called Print Studio that you can load. That's an Autodesk product for free to help you figure out where the supports are, see it in the 3D environment for the printer. Now, so this is where you can start to collaborate with all of your friends that weren't here, so you can show them what you were working with. So if you expand the data panel, remember our 9 cubes in the upper left-hand corner, and right-click on the file name, share public link. And let me zoom up on this. So share public link. Now, what that's going to do, it's going to bring up another dialog box, and I can simply turn on, yes, I would like to save this, and do I want people to download that? I can copy that URL, and then very quickly here, I'm just going to open this up in Chrome. So you can do this with Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. So Internet Explorer will not work if you're trying to do that. But watch this, right? So here, you can also do this on your cell phone, your tablet. So you can send this to anyone. You notice the download options are up here, so I could download this. So this is way cool. So let's say that I actually wanted to show someone, the great work that we did here today. You can actually do a cross-section right inside your browser. How cool is that, right? All right. Now, the last thing here is I want to introduce to you the CAM. And Bryce is going to come here a little bit and talk about the subtractive manufacturing after Lauren talks about the additive. So what I would like everyone to do is open up the file called 4-CAM. And again, you can close the data panel. And of course, let your other file keep on working. Remember, so Fusion in the background is still rendering that. So here's the deal inside of 4-Cam. So again, what Daniel was talking about, so part of the platform is we're going to give you the tools to go right to manufacturing. So what's already been done here is we went through the setup, create the stock, and go ahead and created the materials, right? Now, I personally didn't create this. What I'm able to do, right from the data panel, by the way, I clicked on people, and I could add someone. So in this case, what I did is I added Lucas from my team to the project. So I didn't have to go back and export a file for Lucas to go back, put it up on Dropbox. Lucas was able to come in here and create this for me. So very quickly, what I'd like you to do is right-click on setup number 2 and simulate. So setup 2, simulate. So everyone will be able to take full credit for all the work that Lucas did. So here we can also turn on the stock, which might make it look a little bit better. So if no one's ever seen this before, this is the stuff that Bryce is going to talk about. So again, you guys can watch this later. Now the last part here, let me just close this. So remember, as we were working in the background, we had Fusion doing all the work for us. So I'm just going to go back to that file, back to render. And here's my completed rendering. How cool is that, right? All right. So now, see, everyone has a little bit of homework. So what I'd like you to do is continue to keep modifying this design, create your own, share your designs, put them up to the gallery. And if you want some inspiration, by the way, there's thousands of models that the community has put together. A lot of those are students, by the way. And of course, keep posting these with the hashtag Design Now. We'd love to see what you're doing. And Jamie's going to come up in a little bit also as well, talk about Design Academy, where you can keep learning a little bit more about Fusion. Of course, we just covered a small portion with the part modeling and a little bit with the surface modeling. Now, what I'd also like to do now is bring up Lauren from Shapeways, because we have a great opportunity here for everybody to send the model up to Shapeways. It's all yours.
Great, yes. This is the clicker for, the clicker pro. Okay, well, Dan wanted me to talk about the promotion, but I can let you do it, Dan, if you want.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if my mic is on, but. Okay, great. So yeah, thanks for having me up, Dan. Okay. What a wonderful introduction to Fusion. So right now, for you folks who've been watching us live, attending the conference and following along with Dan on this project, if you use the code Design Now 2016 with your order, you'll get 20% off your own designs. And that's a special invitation from Shapeways for kind of closing the loop and finishing your project with us. And then, of course, the first 50 uploads that tag their design with Design Now 2016 in the description, Shapeways is gonna send you your design for free. So you wanna follow Dan's instructions, and you're gonna be doing the phone stand, but this is part of promoting the whole infrastructure and experience of digital and distributed manufacturing with Autodesk. So thanks for having us, and great work, Dan.